Good morning, everybody. ISHI 33 here in Washington, D.C., and I am meeting today with Timothy Nafziger. Hello there, Timothy. I'm Travis. It's nice to meet you. No, thanks. Timothy, what brings you to ISHI this year?
Just find out more things about DNA and learn what's going on with everybody else.
Okay. And where are you from, Timothy?
I'm from Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, and what company do you work for?
I work for the Greenville County Department of Public Safety.
All right.
I'm a DNA analyst.
You are an actual DNA analyst. So you're in the laboratory. Are you using a lot of the tools that you've been seeing here at the ISHI?
Yes, we are.
Yep. What kind of equipment do you use to do your DNA analysis?
We use the ABI 3500 for CE. Okay. We have some QIAGEN products, the QIAgilities, Easy Ones, and QIAcubes.
Okay. What in the world ever brought you into the world of genetics and genetic forensics, actually?
I didn't plan on it. I got my master's in entomology, which is the study of insects.
Yes.
And then I had a friend in the field, and I was looking for a job, and he's like, you should come, you can be a serologist. And so I came in, started as a serologist, and then later trained to be a DNA analyst.
Okay, so what is the most interesting object, something that you had to analyze for DNA and you got a great profile off of?
I mean, the case that I'm talking about in my here at ISHI, it was pretty interesting. We had a mask that was, long story short, they didn't really have many leads. Some guy reports that the victim's car is burning on his property in the woods, in a remote area of the county, and there's really not much evidence at this point. But then he sees about it on the news, about the case on the news, and he had apparently near the vehicle found a camo hunting mask and thought it'd be great for turkey hunting. So he decided to keep it and didn't tell the police about it. But then he saw it on the news, saw it as part of a big crime, and he called and was like, "Y'all might want this," and they were like, "Yes, we definitely do."
Yes.
And so we actually got a CODIS hit off of it. There was an unknown male on it and a very small amount of blood on it that was basically a 50-50 mixture of this unknown, at the time, unknown male and the victim of the crime, which was very exciting. At the time, we couldn't do anything with it because we didn't have probabilistic genotyping on yet. We're a TrueAllele lab. And but we eventually sent it off to cybergenetics, and they confirmed, it's a mixture of that male and the victim. So that really broke the case open.
Wow. So somebody just wanted to have this mask.
I mean, it must be good for turkey hunting. I've never gone turkey hunting, but
I haven't either. But it must be really good to take that from the site of a burning vehicle, and then So, were they able to then find that person? They got a hit, and then that person was then arrested?
Well, yeah, it was actually a crime. It ended up being a group of people from 3 different states. What? So the short story is they used his cell phone records. They started tracking his cell phone. And he had been at all the crime scenes. There were multiple scenes in this crime.
My gosh,
and it was a crew of people. And they linked his phone to a guy in North Carolina. And then later, so that kind of tied in a little bit, but they still weren't sure where the rest of the guys came from.
Yeah.
But they had been making some phone calls to some Florida numbers, which was not, they didn't know they couldn't figure out who that was.
Sure.
But then later, we had another person from the public that helped with the case. He was at a AT&T substation, and he found he happened to flip over some trash that was on the side of the road, recognized the victim's name from the news, and called the police. And there was a glove there, among other things. But we got a CODIS profile off the glove that hit to a guy in Florida.
That is insane. So did both of those samples come to your lab?
They did.
You did the mask and the glove?
Mm-hmm.
So on that glove that had some blood, how did you determine that there was blood on the mask? I'm sorry.
Well, the mask, it was just a visual examination. There was just a tiny, reddish-brown smear, basically, and did a phenolphthalein test on it.
Yep, and then you knew, and then you focused in on that. And then how about the glove?
So the glove, we just processed it for ownership. It was a pretty messy mixture, but we were able to get a major profile for this one guy that ended up hitting in Florida.
Interesting.
Which linked up with the phone calls that the investigators hadn't been able to connect to someone.
Wow.
And so the investigators figured out, they contacted investigators in Florida, and the Florida investigators were super excited that people in Greenville had something on this guy, because he had a crew of people that they suspected of being responsible for a lot of armed robberies, home invasions, and even murders.
Wow.
But they hadn't been able to pin anything on them.
Yes. That's amazing. So how did you feel being a part of this, like, investigation? Like, you were a key piece of that.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Like, you know, we don't often hear what necessarily comes of our evidence, you know, how useful it ended up being or whatever. But this was a clear case where they had no suspects, and it just very linked up. It linked up very well.
Yeah.
This crew had no connection to the victims. They knew they had a lot of money. They suspected they had a lot of money. And so they literally put trackers on their vehicle and tracked them for weeks. They actually had to go change the batteries in the trackers because the trackers ran out of power.
Whoa, that's pretty sophisticated right there.
They thought they had the perfect crime.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they left a good bit of evidence behind.
Yeah. Yeah, good for them. And good for all the people like yourself and everybody who works in this field, right? I mean, that's why we're all here, to help capture those people like that. Do you have any other cases that are, you know, maybe not that amazing and happening, but have you helped with other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we've worked a bunch of cases over the years that have been very good results.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I like it when we see CODIS hits that link up cases particularly. So we've had cases where we've tested like old sexual assault kits that have linked up with other states' sexual assault kits. We've had cases where like we did blood from a burglary, and at this point I think we've gotten hits to like 6 states with that evidence, and they say they know who the guy is, like he's part of some larger ring that they're trying to get, but it's like linked up a bunch of states.
That is so interesting. So explain to us what is the CODIS? What is that database?
Yeah, CODIS is the Combined DNA Index System. It's run by the FBI, and if samples, we're a local lab, so we don't put any known samples in, but if we have an evidence sample that meets the regulations that are set by the FBI, we can put it in, and it will search against arrestees, offenders, and other forensic samples from around the country.
That's interesting. So I talked to someone from Interpol yesterday. Is that, you know, are you linked with them in any way, shape, or form? Or
we have not.
We have not. Okay.
At this point.
Yeah. I think that's why he was here. He's trying to get people to know that that's a possibility, to get people internationally that are doing these crimes too. That's interesting. Okay. So how long have you been doing this job?
I started in the lab in 2013.
Okay.
So I've been doing DNA casework for about 3 years.
Okay. And now, when you have done these cases, were you invited? Did you have to go and testify in court?
I have testified. I've testified 18 times, I think. 18 times.
How does that feel?
I mean, knock on wood, there hasn't been a particularly bad experience at this point. You know, it's just you just say what you found. And, you know, it's pretty straightforward.
Just present the facts, right?
Don't get baited into anything.
Yeah.
So, this case, or the case we're talking about here, where the crime ring or whatever, we almost had to testify in it, but up to like the day of the trial, the last 4 guys finally decided to plead guilty, as they were picking the jury. So
no kidding.
So we were all a little relieved, because we ended up testing a lot of evidence in that case, not just the ones that I mentioned. But it was going to be a big case. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's a big win. Very, very interesting to have been a part of that. That's so cool, and probably bringing a lot of closure to the families.
I hope so.
Right? That were a part of that crime. So that's really neat. Are you going to come to ISHI 34 next year, you think?
It depends. I don't know.
It's in Denver.
I'd love to. I would love to. Obviously, the whole lab doesn't get to go, so
That's true.
We rotate. In fact, we can owe that to this case in large part. At the time that case actually occurred during ISHI in 2018.
For real?
Yeah, and so we, leading up to that, we had tried to get our whole lab to go, which at the point was just 4 people, small lab.
Okay.
But our captain was like, you never know, there could be a big case that comes up, someone needs to work. We're like, it's just 3 days. Like, how often does that really happen?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
And of course, this case happens and forever ruined that argument.
Wow.
So,
So yeah, I guess he can use that argument every year now, right?
Well, now I can't. Now they can use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody's always staying back in the lab. So we'll see who goes.
Okay.
Someone from our lab will be it.
All right. Well, Timothy, it was very nice talking with you. Very great job, and hope to see you again next year.